these major developments. The legal and political experts are joining me now. Shan Wu, let me start with you. What do you think were the most significant factors that went into the jury's decision?
I think her demeanor, Jean Carroll's demeanor, apparently was very persuasive. And I think that Trump's defense team obviously did not put on the case. They don't have to put on the case, but I think in hindsight that was probably a strategic error. His absence, I think, was a huge strategic error because it allowed the jury to only have one side of things. And then when they did actually hear from Trump, of course, it was the very worst of him, the portions of the deposition where he's really leaning into his very sexist comments. So I really think that they weren't able to really rebut the evidence put on by Ms. Carroll's team, which was very strong evidence, very well presented, but they really didn't do anything to counter that.
And Kara Scannell, what are you hearing from both E.Jean Carroll and Trump's lawyer?
Well, Wolf, E.Jean Carroll tonight is declaring victory. She issued a written statement in which she said, "I filed this lawsuit against Donald Trump to clear my name and get my life back. Today, the world finally knows the truth. This victory is not just for me, but for every woman who has suffered because she was not believed." Now, she didn't make any statements here on camera, but that is what she said after she had left court. Now, Trump's attorney, Joe Tacopina, did answer questions from reporters, and he was asked if he had spoken with former President Trump. Tacopina said that he did, and here's what he said next. Take a listen.
Go forward. Obviously, he's firm in his belief, as many people are, that he cannot get a fair trial in New York City based on the jury pool. And I think one could argue that that's probably an accurate assessment based on what happened today. Again, it's something that, we're very confident on the appellate issues here.
And so some of these appellate issues that he raised, he said he's going to raise with the appeals court. One, that they weren't allowed to test the DNA that Carroll said she had on the dress that she wore the day of the alleged rape. That was something that was litigated in advance, and the judge had disallowed it because of some delay in their going back and forth over it. He also said he was going to challenge the judge letting the Access Hollywood tape come into this trial and be played before the jury. Carroll's attorneys relied on that in their closing arguments. They said it was essentially a confession. So he's going to argue that that should not have been allowed to come in. And they also wanted to argue that part of Carroll's defense was funded by a person, Reid Hoffman, who has donated to a lot of Democratic causes. Part of their defense was that Carroll was politically motivated in the case. The judge did not allow that in. So those are at least some of the issues that they are going to raise on appeal, Wolf.
Yep. David Chalian, our political director. This comes as Trump is about to face voters fairly soon in New Hampshire. Yeah, he wants to be president of the United States again. What are you were there for us in New Hampshire right now. What are the political implications for him in the aftermath of this verdict?
Well, Wolf, you know that Donald Trump is no stranger to running for the presidency while dealing with a swirl of controversy around him, and that is no different this time around for him. I think there are two key things to watch here. One, do voters who are with Donald Trump, who have proven to be the stickiest supporters in the history of modern American politics, does this have any impact on them? My guess is no. But the other sort of fallout question to watch here is, as Donald Trump is now the clear frontrunner for the Republican nomination, and he and his campaign team are plotting a course to win back the White House, they are doing that with great consideration to trying to win back independent and suburban women in those critical battleground states. Does a story like this, does a verdict like this complicate Donald Trump's mission to win some of those voters back? And that's what we have to be watching for in the months ahead here.
Yep. Wolf, can I just add that this case doesn't help those independent voters, those fence sitters who are thinking of Donald Trump but might not want to vote for him in a primary. This doesn't help them say, oh yeah, I'm going to go for Donald Trump now. I think that it helps them go in another direction and think about it again and say, well, maybe, particularly if you're a woman, maybe I don't, I'm not interested so much in Donald Trump. As for the solid base, as David is talking about, I think they're with him no matter what, particularly as Kara was talking about, given the fact that they're going to say, and I was talking to a Republican strategist about this today. They're going to say that this is a political case funded largely by a Democratic donor.
And Audrie Cornish, just how significant is it that for the first time, a former president of the United States and a current presidential candidate has been found liable for sexual abuse?
I think everyone is incredibly focused, and rightfully so, of the sexual nature of this, but I would note E.Jean Carroll's actual statement where she talks about clearing her name. Reputational smears and going after the motivations of the people who level allegations against him is a very important part of the former president's approach to campaigning and to dealing with crisis and scandal, of which this is kind of an original sin, right? Connected back to that October 2016 kind of tape, the quote-unquote Access Hollywood tape. And in this moment, in court, it's a different ballgame, right? It's one thing to just toss this stuff out on Truth Social or Twitter or whatever. It's another thing to say these things in court and to say these things in the public and have that scrutinized in court with evidence. And I think that has significance going forward because, again, this is a very key tool for him to weaponize people, their background, their motivation, who they are, and we're finding out there may be limits to that.
Shan, how do you think Trump is going to navigate not just this verdict, but the mountain of other criminal investigations he's facing?
You know, he doesn't have too much choice on how to navigate it. His tried and true technique is to delay. I mean, he's delayed a lot of these for a long time. They're all beginning to roll downhill at him now, and he can only take them on one at a time. Certainly with the civil case, I think you see a hint of what might happen were he to be found guilty in a criminal case like Alvin Bragg's case, which is he'll just deny that he's liable. He'll say the trial was fixed, and that's going to be his continuing strategy, just to move forward into the political realm and just ignore these things. But I think that's his only plan for the navigation. I think we're actually seeing that this is the kind of tail end of legal maneuvering that can go on. Sure, there'll be an appeal, but with all these investigations, the attempts to derail them through advanced legal maneuvering, we're beginning to see that those are all failing one by one, Wolf.
Yes, indeed. All right, everybody, thank you very, very much. Just ahead,